Hello, it's Deriv'era and Dragon Age Origins. I will be playing original version without any add-ons or patches as how it was upon release. I will be playing on Windows XP on real hardware to have full authentic experience with all the bugs and problems. Spoiler, this game works so much better on Windows XP compared to Windows 10. Let's install the game. For some reason BioWare made titles them song to play only during the autorun menu and not during the installation. Dragon Age's title them is wonderful. So let's play it in the background. And during this, let's enjoy Alister's dancing to the maker. And here we are. SSD power to install games fast shines if games are not super archived to struggle my core duo. What's funny, Dragon Age Origins has problems with loading time. More you play, longer it gets to load. It's a bug. And now let's watch the intro.
The Chantry teaches us that it is the hubris of men which brought the Darkspawn into our world. The mages had sought to usurp heaven, but instead they destroyed it. They were cast out, twisted and cursed by their own corruption. They returned as monsters, the first of the Darkspawn. They became a blight upon the lands, unstoppable and relentless. The Dwarven kingdoms were the first to fall, and from the deep roads, the Darkspawn drove at us again and again, until finally we neared annihilation. Until the Grey Wardens came. Men and women from every race, warriors and mages, barbarians and kings. The Grey Wardens sacrificed everything to stem the tide of darkness, and prevailed. It has been 4 centuries since that victory, and we have kept our vigil. We have watched and waited for the Darkspawn to return. But those who once called us heroes have forgotten. We are few now, and our warnings have been ignored for too long. For I have seen with my own eyes what lies on the horizon. Maker, help us all.
Nowadays, it's a miracle if a game that is installed from DVD works like a charm, without problems and major bugs out of the box, without any downloadable patches. It's applicable not only to modern PC games, but to Switch and PS5 games as well. They all require 0-day patches. Dragon Age crashed only 3 times during 30 hours of playing, and Without sarcasm, for such a massive game, with a lot of loadings and possible problems to have, it's a really good result considering how this game was developed. During the development, team switched to the game engine, and it's contributed not only to slowing down of the development process, but also to some minor issues. If you, for some reason, never played Dragon Age, I don't know how it's even possible, to be honest. When you end this game, it leaves you with a feeling you live through another life there by characters that experienced its story and this world, and you lived it through them. It's something private, it's something personal. It leaves a feeling of a miss. Maybe some people dislike games that cause hard feelings. Maybe some people don't have empathy to pixels. But Origins is something that happens rarely in games industry. Made by people who wanted to make a good game and had no sticks in their wheels, almost no sticks. Electronic Arts acquired BioWare in 2007 when Dragon Age was already in development, and they introduced changes to the management. Probably thanks to them, we have Dragon Age 2 as something pale and uninteresting. But EA wasn't able to screw development of Origins even if pushed BioWare to meet deadlines, because I believe game had a nice base already when it happened. From one side, deadlines are actually a good thing, because they force game to be released, but when it's done by corporations like Electronic Arts, it introduces new people into the process, people who has no care about the game they involved with. Game becomes a product, not a creation of the art. And it's bad. For us, we want art. We don't want product. People may not be allowed to do what they want to do. Sometimes it's reasonable. If developers want useless, time-consuming features to be made, or care about players so much they make Diablo free, but still when people are allowed to work, miracles may happen. And they need to be guided to work efficiently by management, but not restricted. And nowadays, this is what is rare. With Dragon Age in general, people were just allowed to work. Crazy, I know. At least for a portion of the development process for a few years. The game is available on Steam. And I'm a person who thinks it's a good idea to buy games and to avoid piracy if possible, because I'm this naive person thinking it makes companies to know what people want. People vote with money, but who am I kidding? Electronic Arts asks money for a game that crashes, has tons of visual bugs, crashes again, and works just awful on Windows 10. It's playable on lower settings on my top PC than on Windows XP on my retro PC. It crashes sometimes even on loading of save files, straight out after the start of the game. This just shouldn't be on Steam in my opinion. It's awful. It's simply disrespectful. You should be aware as well that Steam version is Ultimate Edition, and that's the one I played on my second run. And Ultimate Edition has all the DLCs available by default. Well, some DLCs are just cut content from the main game that should have been there on release, like the location of the massive battle with Darkspawn from the start of the game, with the mission to bury a body of your friend on one side. On another side, game is completely broken, because you can buy pies and with money indefinitely improve relationships with characters, killing all the story relationships progression. It straight up breaks how the game feels. It breaks the experience, and whoever person who decided to publish it on Steam, just okay with that. And team was okay with that. Nobody asked at the start which DLCs I want to enable. No recommendations to enable some DLCs only for a second run, and like game just drops some broken shit on you, and you, if you're a person who is unaware about what you're doing, what you're playing, you will just get terrible experience, that's it. So my opinion about Steam version is better to pirate out of 10. So let's talk about the game itself. World is inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. That's common for a fantasy game, but takes a step aside and modifies the rules. Elves are, for example, not a high race. They are literal slaves to humans, living in poverty and injustice. Mages are not respected. They are controlled by chantry and are not allowed to live freely, otherwise hunted and killed or forced to go to Mage Tower. Some mages go through magical castration with inability to cast and feel emotions after it. I would say it's more grounded version of Dungeons and Dragons, so-called low fantasy or something in between. Archdemon is trying to destroy Ferelden. Plot is pretty simple. The kingdom is invaded by hordes of Darkspawn, creatures with empty souls that are cursed, and technically is another race because they can exist without Archdemon that plays the role of their leader. They're kind of mindless, but not really, with some kind of a culture of death and spreading darkspawn. Also, in Awakening DLC, you will meet talking darkspawn. So it's more like creatures that were heavily changed into something dark, negative and corrupted. Archdemon himself is darkspawn god and leader, one of many hidden in the world that darkspawn seek to find and reveal or resurrect or something like that, or create. Once in a centuries, darkspawn succeeds, and then the blight happens when darkspawn gains leadership and stops being just scattered gangs fighting everyone, including each other, and making other darkspawn through making them drink darkspawn blood and creating brood mothers. I played on high difficulty, and I need to say that other dragons in the game are more powerful than Archdemon, and Archdemon is a dragon as well, because he can't take you in his claws and kill characters or eat them with blocking of all of their actions and abilities. And other dragons in the game can do this, and they use it a lot. As a Grey Warden, you're destined to defeat Archdemon. This goal is set to you in a very beginning, because RPGs are about paths to accomplish the goal, not about goal itself. And Dragon Age follows this formula. Dragon Age Origins is like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but made in era of Windows XP, and Zelda happened to be raped and turned into brood mother to born more darkspawn, and swords don't break. Zelda is like a fairy tale where good always wins, and Dragon Age is like a harsh reality where everyone dies, and in the end of the game you can observe your own funeral. That's how game ended for me on the first run. If you play as an elf, people will refer to you as an elf, well, it's an RPG, and refer to your low position in society as a race. As an elf, you will meet racism. People saying, what the heck, you're an elf, why the hell you wear armor? You must be cooking food, cleaning dishes, and playing with little Johns of nobles. Yeah, it's an adult game, not only because of blood, but other more disgusting themes that make this game feel more real. You know, those Game of Thrones moments. First book, by the way, was released in 1996, so there is a high chance that Dragon Age was actually inspired by Game of Thrones. Movies came 2 years after the release of Dragon Age. Character creation allows you to create something that looks like a woman. Still better than Mass Effect Andromeda, still huge problems with female anatomy. In terms of human anatomy, Dragon Age feels like a game created by gays that never have seen a woman. Take a look at Morrigan and how her shoulders are wider than her hips. It's one of the points of femininity that is the easiest to define for body difference, and devs completely missed it everywhere. You can as well select your voice if it matters, because, well, most of the time you hear yourself when you give an order to open a chest.
Got it. I'll get on it. Got it.
Totally different.
Now's better than later.
So I played as a city elf. I wanted to be a bad girl, but it's actually very difficult because of my compassion to pixels and digital characters. And I need to say that Dragon Age loses to Larian games of the future and RPG aspects a lot. Even with 68,260 dialogue lines, it feels limited in role-playing. Sometimes. I was allowed to curse humans as an elf that became Grey Warden only in the start of the game. I plan to curse humans to the end of the game, but quite shortly these dialogue lines with dirty human, you can only drink and hurt others, and whatsoever disappeared. Dragon Age is quite a linear game in a nutshell, and plays well on giving a choice without giving a choice. Not on the level of Mass Effect Andromeda, of course. No, please, in comparison to it, Dragon Age provides an ultimate freedom to you. But still, there are limitations. But in many cases, I was still satisfied with options that I was provided. Only with Morrigan, at the most important moment to hold her to stay with me, I failed. I wanted to say more to her than game offered me to say. And you know, it happens a lot when you feel you have something on your heart, but you can't tell it because game thinks that it's not important, but for you it's important. I felt even betrayed by both Morrigan in the game and devs, because like devs evolve in everything you do here, spiritually. There was so much to say and didn't happen. I probably will struggle about it to the end of my life. Dragon Age does not forgive mistakes to the player. You will be able to complete the game even if you kill most of your companions. You basically can walk to a friend and say, you know, I dislike you. Die! And start a fight. You can accidentally kill your potential companion. You may as well be outforced by an enemy where your wrong decision doesn't give you a chance to survive the battle, especially if your previous choices was wrong about the party members and how you played. Dragon Age enjoys giving you choices in which you may have no idea what is better, even if you are aware about the situation and it's not something random or out of nowhere. For example, this clever guy is basically trading your family and keeping your father captive, but killing him may not be the best option. So it depends on who you want to be as a character during this play, and you decide between evil and more evil. You have a past, but it's about how you achieve your power and goal. It's like a social experience, but without multiplayer. So it's hard for me to play Dragon Age lighthearted, as I already said. If compared to first original scene from Larian, there I was killing everyone in the city whom I could spare for a loot. But Dragon Age, while being an older game, building connections with society around much better than other RPGs of the era. Even while robbing refugees, I felt a little small moral panic robbing them. Still robbed, because I'm an elf hating humans. But elves I robbed as well. You know, my mother was a rogue. I'm a rogue. It's hereditary. Even if game doesn't allow you to kill randoms, in many dials you still have options where you can start a fight and kill an opponent. Characters are different, as they should be in RPG, or even in real life. Alister is another Grey Warden, for example, that was being used by other people his entire life. He is like a puppy, whining but doing things he dislikes, even if he is with the sword and the shield. Morgan is a witch with low morals, high willpower and profound attitude. And the dog basically is a placeholder. Or if you really hate other people, you can go around with the dog, why not? With its own unique skill set. He loves you without questioning, you don't need even to give presents to him. You actually can take a ranger speciality as rogue and summon a wolf. Then there will be 3 of you and 0 humans or elves or Kunari. Stan is a Kunari guy that enjoys when women being powerful. With a plot hole. He tells you that he lost the sword representing his pride, and for this he will be killed at his homeland upon return, but, well, he still returns there, safely, even if you won't help him find his sword. Origins isn't the most well-written game. If you follow the story you will find more plot holes. And that's reasonable, because storyline was an afterthought, and actually dragons in the name of the game was made before dragons was even introduced to the story or to the game. But still, Dragon Age has so many details: dragons, dungeons, werewolves, curse problems, hatred, racism, alcohol, peasants, nobles, crazy dwarfs, brothels with surprise me option, alienage, and many more with a lot of decisions waiting for you to be made, and creatures to be killed. It's an RPG in the end, that somehow makes it interesting to listen to dialogues, not just taking quests and running around by marks. Okay, I'm actually a sinister, I have skipped some dialogues with Leliana, because talking to her felt like leader's work, nothing more. She is so out of my type. Battle system. It's a classically weird battle system from BioWare, and somehow they made something that looks awful to look at from the side, but well enough to actually be played and not to be annoying during long dungeon runs. And that, about how awful it looks from the side, is a very important statement. When I looked through the footage, I understood how boring active pose looks for an action RPG from the side of a foreign viewer. The problem is, it doesn't feel this way when you're actually playing the game. Now imagine modern AAA project from a big studio considering doing active pose, and the first thought comes to consider how will it look during streams and YouTube reviews. Diablo 3 is a quintessence of the approach to make gameplay as smooth as possible and failing to deliver fun, and active pose goes against all action genre smoothness of combat and look fundamentals. That makes Dragon Age unique. Back in the days people just didn't think it will be a problem. There was no YouTube to get inspiration against these ideas. It was a period of experiments. So about being boring. Modern games are much more affected by how those games will be viewed by watchers of streams and reviews. With this being said, most likely, aside of rare independent studios, we won't see active pause in AAA games. I'm pretty sure about it. And I really like active pause. I have several favorite games with this mechanic like UFO Aftermath or Faster Than Light. It gives time to think, to plan, to manage, and it doesn't reduce amount of gamers' fingertips adrenaline, because your enemies are still here even if you pause and music is still playing. It even hits the action, I would say. Aside of that, here is a classic RPG style battle system with up to 8 characters, 4 main and 4 summonable creatures. Levels, equipment and health mana potions are included with some buff consumables as well. An interesting addition is condition result programs for party members, but most likely you will just use presets. I mostly use presets, with some minor changes for Morrigan, to avoid her of hitting friendly units with IRL magic. Looting has flaws. You may loot a lot of chests to get nothing important after investing a lot of skill points into lockpicking, but it didn't bother me much because I was personally more absorbed by the stories and equipment. If you prefer looter RPGs like Diablo, then Dragon Age is definitely not your choice. What you will get from chests and even bosses mostly will just suck. Too many chests for too small amount of nice stuff. What about balance? Balance is something that doesn't exist. Mages can pass the whole game solo, and when you play as a rogue, as I played, you basically will struggle, especially on hard difficulty. You will just struggle all the time. But from the story standpoint, it's actually logical because mages are, well, more powerful than rogues. And now let's move to a technical part. If you are new to this new channel, pun intended, I need to introduce you to the interesting fact that I write my own DirectX 9.0C engine in my spare time, and currently it's something stable and game development ready, so I want to share my thoughts about Dragon Age from the position of developer with interest in ancient technologies, same ancient as Ferelden. Game utilizes one-directional light with shadows casting that plays a role of the sun. What's funny, inside buildings this light just casts shadows directly from top to down. All other level shadows and lights are baked. Game shows you landscapes and a lot of open spaces, so this approach to optimization is reasonable. I did not notice any spotlights, but I noticed the usage of omnis. Omni is a light source casting light in all directions. Logical, right? So here it works, but not per pixel like in many newer and some even older games than Dragon Age. Here they work per vertex. It means that light is calculated per vertices of polygon, not for each pixel of the polygon. It works much faster, but has an issue perfectly described by Wikipedia: lower amount of polygons, lower quality of lighting. But I guess that's a reasonable approach by what I decided to use. DirectX 9 is capable of such stuff as modern physically based rendering. It has all the shader abilities. Problem comes with performance of video cards of Dragon Age era. I play using GTX 660 Ti and game works well in Full HD, even if this video card wasn't meant to be used in Full HD. 660 is 1 year younger than Dragon Age. And with how the game made, I had lags only in really heavy scenes, like Square at Denerim. There is a noticeable bug that happens with hair when background blur strikes in during dialogues. Not as bad as in Golub, but still noticeable. I'm sure you're curious about reasons, so we should dig into rendering pipeline. Most, if not all games of that era used forward rendering, including Dragon Age. Alternative is deferred rendering, but it requires a lot more video memory, and video memory was a much bigger problem back in the past than now. Forward rendering uses two textures to create a picture. One is a color, basically it's what you will see on the display. Second is depth buffer, information about how far object is from the screen. It's called forward because it renders objects in one go with all the light and material information. Deferred method works differently by first creating all possible image information and applying light after main rendering phase. Both still have a depth buffer. If you draw a wall and try to draw a character behind this wall, character won't be drawn because its pixel depth is deeper than the current rendered image. This allows 3D graphics to filter what is in front and what is in the background. But there is a fundamental problem with transparent objects. You can't determine transparency in depth buffer. You have pixel near or far. There is no transparent depths, and just depths in between won't be correct. Transparent objects are being rendered after solid objects. So when engine draws a polygon with transparency, it decides will it write into depth buffer or not. And there is no other options. And if it renders transparent pixels, basically all pixels of the polygon will block any further drawing deeper from the camera. In other words, if you draw a fully transparent cube with zero color information, it won't allow anything to be drawn behind it, and will create a visual bug. To solve this problem, engine first renders solid objects, including masked objects. Masked objects use textures with transparency, but with some threshold pixel drawn without any transparency or just fully discarded, so masked transparency produce only solid pixels. Shader model 3 that is used for shaders in Dragon Age allows shader to simply call discard to avoid drawing a pixel, and masks not used for hair cause of how terribly they look at this role, but they are much faster to draw. I have some crow I modeled long ago and put into Unreal Engine 4. You can see this masked approach on the feathers. It works well for stylized graphics. After solid objects are rendered, engine sorts transparent objects by depths and draws them from far to near. For post-process effect like depth blur, you have two options here. If you save depths with hair, you will corrupt depths with broader shape of polygon compared to hair texture of it. If you won't draw depths, all your hair outside of solid surface of the head will be blurred by post-process effect. And here I am personally confused why BioWare simply didn't discard pixels with near zero transparency of hair since shaders load. It's a mystery, but we have what we have. So after the scene is drawn, blur shader is applied. It takes depth texture and depending on the value of the depth, blurs colors. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed these technical insights. Like and subscribe if you're into old hardware and old PC gaming. Currently I'm preparing more interesting stuff in the near future, including some very technical things. Luck and goodbye.